the United States Armed Forces is not constitutional under the powers granted to the government of the United States of America. The draft was passed by the Congress, which was exercising its tyrannical power to legislate in all cases whatsoever. Those who have gone through the induction ceremony tell me that each draftee is asked to take one step forward as they enlist. This is reportedly the one step that each draftee takes to indicate that he is doing so voluntarily. He is indicating that he is voluntarily taking one step forward so that he is giving jurisdiction to the government of the United States. I have been told that if he stands pat, in other words, if he does not take the step forward, giving jurisdiction to the government, there is nothing that the government can do to the draftee. I want to make it clear that I am not recommending that anyone stop paying taxes, nor that they send mail inside the 50 states for 2 cents, nor that they get out of the Social Security system, nor that they avoid the draft by not taking that one step forward. What I am saying is that there needs to be some court cases clearly establishing that these statements are true, so that we can absolutely know for certain that this preliminary research is correct. The one book telling us how this can be legally accomplished has yet to be written. I have not seen that book yet, so I have personally not decided to get out of the system. But it has been reported to me that thousands of people are getting out of the system each year by claiming that they are not citizens of the government of the United States. But I continue to pay my federal taxes. By the way, I pay my income taxes to Uncle Marx, not Uncle Sam, because Uncle Marx, meaning Uncle Karl Marx, was the father of the graduated income tax. Once again, this is the Communist Manifesto that we've looked at before. It was written by Karl Marx, the so-called father of communism, and on page 46 of the book, Karl Marx called for a heavy progressive or graduated income tax. Remember that this book was written by the communist Karl Marx in 1848, and we didn't get our heavy progressive or graduate income tax until 1913. Now, those who disagree with my assessment that we are not citizens of the government of the United States must answer this question. What were we before the 14th Amendment if we were not citizens of the United States? Why did they have to declare us citizens of the government of the United States if we were already citizens of the government of the United States? And the answer to that one question is because we were called sovereign citizens of the state in which you were born. You were called an American. But after the 14th Amendment, we were called citizens of the government of the United States. A sovereign is someone who lives by God-given inalienable right. A citizen is one who lives by government-granted privilege. A privilege can be taken away by the one granting the privilege. Rights cannot be taken away except by the grantor, in this case meaning the Creator God of the Bible. Simply stated in one sentence, we have lost our sovereignty. I would like to pose a question to those who believe my position is incorrect on Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, being the clause that gives government tyrannical power. If I am wrong where I claim that the powers we gave Congress are very specific, and if we did not specifically grant government any specific power, they do not have it. Where did the Founding Fathers give Congress the power to tax us, to build a space telescope, to take pictures of the distant planets? How could our Founding Fathers have envisioned such a thing? How could they have written this into the Constitution? Congress shall have the power to build telescopes that shall be placed in orbit above the Earth to take photographs of distant planets. How could they have even dreamed about such a thing in the 1780s? Yet Congress has taxed us to build the Hubble Space Telescope, which is in orbit right now. Let's say that we had the ability to go back to 1776, when they were debating the powers to give to Congress, and we had asked them to include a provision granting us power to build a space telescope. Just what do you think their answer would have been to our request? There is no such thing as a space telescope. They could not have conceived of such a thing in 1780. Yet in the 1980s, Congress passed legislation creating the power to orbit the Hubble Space Telescope. Where did they get the power if the founding fathers did not give it to them? They got it from Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. Congress shall have the power to legislate in all cases whatsoever. The Hubble Space Telescope confirms my allegations. Congress has unlimited power, meaning they have the power to do whatever their fiendish little minds can devise. The power to legislate in all cases whatsoever. And who were these founding fathers who tricked us by creating a hidden tyrannical government? They were the Masons who wrote the Constitution. The Constitution was the joint work of half a dozen men or more, yet today few historians begrudge James Madison, later to become President of the United States, as being the father of the Constitution. Because the author of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 was James Madison himself. In fact, in 1956, President Dwight Eisenhower commissioned a study entitled Jurisdiction over Federal Areas within the states. That study made the conclusion, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution was included in the Constitution as a result of proposals made to the Constitutional Convention by Charles Pinckney and James Madison. There were some who objected to the grant of tyrannical powers, according to the Eisenhower report. Objections made by Patrick Henry and others based upon the dangers to personal rights and liberties which Clause 17 presented were anticipated or replied to by Mr. Madison. That means that Mr. Madison knew that his grant was going to cause controversy, so he anticipated it. So Patrick Henry, because he objected to the tyrannical provisions of this provision, the tyrannical powers of this provision, goes to the top of my list of great American patriots, and James Madison goes to the bottom. The report goes on. They, meaning those who objected, were assured that the rights of residents of federalized areas would be protected by appropriate reservations made by the states in granting their respective consents to federalization. That means that whatever argument that Madison used convinced the dissenters that their rights would be protected by the states. But notice this incredible omission by the Eisenhower Commission members in their report. It may be noted that this assurance has to this time borne only little fruit. The dissenters were lied to. Their rights were not protected by this incredible grant of power to the Congress. They were hoodwinked by James Madison. We, the sovereign people of America, gave up our sovereignty by a fraudulent argument. Those who granted the power knew what they were doing. In other words, there was cause for concern in 1787. There was cause for concern in 1956, but nothing has been done to correct the situation. So I'm saying there was cause for concern even today in 1994. And last question, was it a coincidence that James Madison, the tyrant, was a Mason? No, because that is precisely what the order of the quest would have wanted him to write into the Constitution. James Madison did what he was expected to do. This is an official list of the presidents who have been Masons prepared by the Masonic Lodge itself. And under the name, under the yellow highlighter, is James Madison, President of the United States. I'd like to return to the discussion of the involvement of the Masonic Lodge in the founding of America. This is a very poor quality photocopy of a picture of the prayer window in a prayer room for legislators in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Notice that George Washington is kneeling at prayer in the middle of the stained glass window, and that he is under the reverse side of the Great Seal of the United States. It is almost as if those who designed the window knew that George Washington, a Mason, was praying to the God in the all-seeing eye of the Great Seal of the United States. Also notice that the Masons have concealed a key Masonic number in the window. There are 33 reversals of the double lines shown on each side of the stained glass window. And as we're going to see later, the number 33 is a key Masonic number of great significance, as I will prove in a few minutes. As I will show you, it was not just another coincidence, but it was a concealed Masonic symbol. Before we continue our study of the secret destiny of America, we must examine an area which is pertinent to our study. We must examine the question of why early man worshipped the sun. The sun in the sky does two observable things. First of all, it rises each morning and sets each evening. It appears to be born in the morning and then die in the evening each day, and then it appears to come back to life the next day when it rises again. Early man realized that he was also born and then died, but that he couldn't come back to life after he died. He knew that after he died, he couldn't come back the next day. So he started imagining that the sun was some sort of God, because he reasoned that only a God can die and then come back to life. And the second way that the sun appears to be born and then appears to die again is because the sun travels on the horizon as it sets each day. This is because the earth tilts back and forth on its axis as it revolves around the sun. So the sun moves north and south across the horizon and sets at a different place every day. It appears to set at a different position on the horizon each day, and early man felt that only gods could do that. Here is a photograph of the sun setting at a particular point on the horizon. It appears to move northward once a year and sets at a particular point. The sun appears to set at this precise point for 3 days, and then it starts moving south again. This happens twice a year, on June the 25th and on December the 25th. That means that on June 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, and December 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of each year, the sun appears to be setting at the same precise location. But on June the 25th and December 25th, it starts to move back to the north or to the south. It appears to die for 3 days and then appears to come back to life on June the 25th and December 25th. And since only gods can die and come back to life, early man reasoned that this was further evidence that the sun must be a god. Now there is actually a word to describe this activity of the sun. It is called the solstice, meaning when the sun is farthest away from the equator. It occurs twice a year, on June the 22nd and on December the 22nd each year. According to this book entitled An ABC of Witchcraft, written by a practicing witch, the witches make a holiday out of each solstice. She wrote this: the winter solstice celebrates the rebirth of the sun. Not only do the witches worship the sun god on the winter solstice, others do as well. Albert Pike wrote this on page 77 of Morals and Dogma. Thousands of years ago, man worshipped the sun. Originally, they looked beyond the orb to the invisible God. Then he identified those gods who had a concealed worship of the sun god inside their regular worship. They personified the sun god as Brahma, Amun, Osiris, Bel, Adonis, Melkarth, Mithras, and Apollo. He went on to point out that the Romans celebrated a holiday known as Saturnalia for 1 week, December 17th to the 24th. Then December 25th became a special holiday called the birth of the unconquerable sun. Author John Robinson says that the Winter Solstice Festival celebrates the victory of the sun over the powers of darkness. I'd now like to suspend that discussion for another area of interest that's related. I'd like to explain why people in America celebrate Christmas on the 25th of December. Christmas is supposed to be the birthday of Jesus Christ, but Jesus Christ was not born in December, nor even in the winter of the year. The Bible tells the reader when Jesus was born. His birth is talked about in Luke 2:8. The writer wrote, there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock at night, by night. Shepherds at the time always brought their flocks from the mountainsides and fields and corralled them not later than October the 15th to protect them from the cold, rainy season that followed. They would be outside in the fields during lambing season when they attempted to protect their young lambs from wolves. And to illustrate that point, I'd like to discuss a story about a friend of mine. In September of 1991, I called a gentleman who is a computer buff. He has created a chronology institute that studies biblical dates. He claims that he has put all of the dates in the Bible and that he has been able to determine that Christ was born on April the 5th, 6 BC, and that he died on April the 5th, 30 AD. That means that Jesus lived 30